The Last Laugh, written by Toby Davies, read by Robbie Coltrane.
The world of Amdram is like a locked toilet. You're not allowed in unless you know the people inside very well, and they tend to produce a lot of shite. This was very much the case of the Taversham West Amateur Theatrical Society. The society had been under the artistic directorship of one Skip Grint for as long as anyone could be bothered to remember. Skip Grint loved all theatre, apart from things he hadn't directed, and things that go on up in London, and things that you had to pay for, and things he hadn't written. Tonight was the 25th annual performance. Skip heaved a heavy sigh. The TWATS had settled into a turgid little rut, performing one pantomime a year from a tired little pile of scripts, all written by Skip Grint. The scripts were littered with topical references from whenever they were written about mad cow disease, Arthur Scargill, and in some instances, the moon landings. These were references that went unchanged. "I know laughs," said Skip, who worked professionally as a customs and excise official. Skip looked gloomily out at the auditorium, waiting for the 15 or so audience members they would doubtlessly get. They didn't get 15. As the double doors covered in blue-tacked parish notices were pushed open, the hall was filled with hundreds, chattering, laughing. This was incredible. Had they really come to see... Well, for a moment, Skip had doubted himself. But then he realised, of course people would come out to see the anniversary show. What was the alternative? Sitting at home in front of the idiot box watching reality stars and endless talent shows? The house lights went down and the curtain raised. In the wings, Polly Hedgewick was holding the usual birthday requests from the audience. Skip grabbed the scraps of paper. "Please say happy birthday to June, but do it loudly as she is quite deaf. If Peter Scott is in the audience, please tell him his fence is nearly 2 feet over my boundary line." Amongst the scraps, however, was a laminated, printed note. Skip read it aloud. "There is a bomb inside the building. It contains enough explosives to kill everyone in the theatre. If anyone tries to leave, the bomb will detonate. If anyone tries to report the bomb will detonate. If anyone tampers with it, the bomb will detonate." "Doesn't sound very Christmassy to me," said Phyllis. Skip turned as white as a sheet as he continued. "The explosive device is linked to the laugh-ometer. If the meter drops below 55 CPM, the device will explode." "CPM?" said Polly. "Chuckles per minute," said Skip. Skip peered through the curtains at the gathered crowds, but saw them not as an audience, but a sea of potential corpses, if this thing were true. Could it be true? In amongst the faces was a collection of features that made Skip Grint wince inside and out. He'd last seen them more than 10 years ago. They belonged on the face of a young woman called Pinky Taylor. This is no bloody time for a flashback, thought Skip. Flashing back to an afternoon, more than a decade ago, Skip was approached by a young Pinky Taylor holding a script. She knew she wanted to work in the theatre. It was in her blood, like art or music or amyloidosis. When she saw the extremely narrow area of produced work available with the twats, she became distressed. But she knew her own mind and suggested to Skip that instead of producing one of the 5 old scripts, they produced a play that she had written. She had held up the script. "It's very funny," she assured Skip. "I know laughs." Skip looked at her askance. "We do this script," she said. "I'll make it rain laughs." Skip definitely heard the barely buried subtext. "These old plays aren't funny, I can do better." Skip flicked through Pinky's script and then silently led her into the prop store. He stopped in front of something like a fairground test your strength machine with a moving arrow. "The laugh-ometer, so what?" said Pinky. "We have had this on stage during every show we've ever done. Would we risk that if they weren't funny?" "Doesn't Philip just push it up and down?" asked Pinky, not really asking, but knowing. "Only when he hears the laughs," hissed Skip. With that, he asked Pinky to take her worthless script and leave the twats, never to return. The look she had given him as she left was one of pure evil, laced with visions of dishes best served cold. The flashback ceased, and Skip looked out again at the buzzing hall. He barely recognized any faces at all. There were press, national press, international press. There were very fashionable-looking young men and women who were dressed in very small and complicated outfits with atypical hairdos. Philip approached. "Philip," barked Skip, "the show's up. What are you doing away from the laughometer?"
"It doesn't seem to need me anymore."
Philip pointed at the old prop squatting at the stage.
"It's gone automatic. It's moving by itself."
The colour drained from Skip's face. Someone else must have made the laughometer automatic. So this could all be true. Who would do such a thing, he thought, and then had another little flashback to just a few minutes ago. Pinky Taylor. He gathered the members of the company who weren't on stage.
"So, bit of an odd one. We need to keep the audience laughing, or we're all dead."
He held out the note, and several pairs of reading glasses were placed on noses. "Of course, it may not be true. It may be a prank. But if it isn't a joke, and I pray to God it is, then we hold not only our own lives, but the lives of that audience in our hands." Not one of the gathered twats thought to challenge Skip. He wasn't the kind of man who made jokes. And then, then something a little extraordinary happened. There was a visible stiffening of the gathered upper lips. Little reserves of blitz spirit started to course through their bodies. These weren't just any guys. These are mothers and fathers and WI members. These are men who can operate a soldering iron, and women who aren't frightened of pressure cookers. These guys don't get frightened. They get things done.
"We have to ensure that the laughometer doesn't drop below 55 CPM. So,"
he could feel his heels digging in,
"we just stick to the script."
"But," said someone,
"We stick to the script."
So the panto was performed with a renewed gusto. They didn't just want to entertain this extremely unusual crowd, they needed to. An elderly Dick Whittington gamely gave the tired lines some beans, but the needle only teetered at 58, 59 mark. Skip couldn't move, one eye on the show, one eye on the laughometer, and then, when one of the eyes wasn't busy, it was scanning the auditorium for Pinky Taylor. No sign. Phyllis, who ran the Cats Protection League shop, dashed off stage.
"They're not laughing, Skip. Not enough. What do we do?"
"We do the script, Phyllis. We do the script. Trust it." Skip had a gnawing feeling that these scripts weren't going to be enough. He looked into Phyllis's cat-loving, kind eyes. They trusted him. They would do what he said, and he didn't want to see them blown up, even if he was more of a dog person.
"You can go a little off-piste. Improvise."
Alice and Dick discovered that against all the odds, they could improvise. There was fire in their bellies as they entered an off-the-cuff routine about Dick Whittington trying to get Alice Fitzwarren to claim for Miss Old PPI.
"Who are you calling Miss Old PPI?"
shouted Phyllis. Laughometer went into the 70s. Give them an inch, and they take a mile. He could barely hear a word of script through these brand-new lines. Surely he just wanted everyone to be safe. Perhaps, even more than that, he wanted to be right. He sent the stage management team off to search for the bomb. These guys weren't action heroes, but they were damn well going to give it a go. While the cast on stage gamely kept the CPMs up, these allotment owners and retired primary head teachers were inching across rafters, investigating heating ducts, like Bruce Willis with a National Trust membership and an artificial hip. On stage, Dick Whittington and Cat had gone into a routine about him having a 5-foot pussy with whiskers made of pipe cleaners. Blue. They were going blue. Skip was furious. But the laughometer stayed gaily in the 70s as the cast improvised for their lives. They couldn't stop for the interval, and Dick Whittington was coming to an end. Skip spread the word. They go straight into Jack and the Beanstalk. The props and costumes were in the store. Get the giant costume, bring on the golden goose, the lucky golden goose that had hung in the rafters during every performance of every show. The audience, it seemed, were having a great time and didn't notice as a new story began. The laughs came thick and fast as Jack's mother and the pantomime cow improvised a milking scene where it wasn't an udder that the dame was pulling. "Why do you produce so little milk, dear cow?" shrieked the dame. "And why are you going blind?" But the cow just shouted, "Moo!" In all the excitement, Morris, who was playing the dame, lost his footing and tumbled from the stage. There was a gasp from the crowd. The laughs had stopped. The laughometer started to dip. 65, 59. Skip made a decision. He hadn't been on stage for many years, but desperate times, he grabbed the dame's bonnet and took the stage. "Don't mind him. He's legless," he quipped. Not much in the way of laughter. Fine, stick to the script. The laughometer started to dip dangerously low. Skip was failing. These old beloved gags, they just weren't funny anymore. A deeper, darker truth burrowed into his brain. Were they ever funny? The laughometer ticked at 55 and a half. Yes, they had half marks. What of it? This is dangerous stuff. Hundreds of lives were at stake. Skip looked at the crowd, this crowd of people that he might kill. Killed because he refused to admit that he wasn't funny. He looked at his castmates, they looked back, eyes wide, fingers in ears, as if that would help. Maybe it would mean their ears would explode last. Then they did the only thing they could do. They stormed the stage and did everything they could think of to make that audience laugh. They juggled with eggs, they did the ministry of silly walks. With such glee, with such enthusiasm, that the audience began to laugh again. Skip grew furious. His whole world was collapsing. Suddenly, amidst the pratfalling and guffawing, something snapped.
What about tradition?
He screamed, both at cast and at audience. "I know laughs." Everyone froze. "We're doing the script, okay? What happens next is we bring down the goose that lays the golden eggs. So, lower it." Philip, not knowing what else to do, pulled the rope to lower the goose on stage. And from the goose came an ominous beeping sound. The laughometer dropped and dropped. Skip looked at the audience. The laughometer dropped to 54. "Well, blow me down," whispered Morris, who even in the face of death had thought of quite a good joke while looking at the explosive goose. A long beep. The goose's eyes flashed. Skip screamed, "Get out! Get out!" Too late. The deafening sound of death filled the room as the goose exploded. And hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper fluttered out. And on every little leaf of paper that fluttered was written the word, ha. Ha, 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 ha. It was raining laughs. After a moment of silence, the audience roared its approval. And in the middle of the bowing line stepped Pinky Taylor, who had left the village and become stronger, wiser, and more avant-garde. A shining light in the modern art world. Pinky Taylor, the performance artist, the now world-renowned performance artist. And this was our most ambitious work yet, using a cast who didn't even know they were part of this seismic new work. This was why the world's press were here, and the crowd were not disappointed. She finally got the last laugh on Skip Grinned. And next year, well, those twats are doing something new.